So thank you all for joining us. This is one of our monthly ACE classes. They're brought on by the Builders Association of the Blue Ridge Mountains and sponsored by 84 Lumber. So if you enjoy what you see, next time you see Judy Donnell walking around, just tell her thank you. This month we're going to be talking about how to make a profit with a nonprofit. So it's a lot about how partnering with nonprofits can help your own business. We've got a few of our panelists here that I'll let Sarah introduce. And so I guess we'll just get started from there.
So Meg Lebeck with Housing Assistance Corporation is with us this morning. They primarily work in Henderson County and Transylvania County. Joel Johnson is with us from Asheville Habitat, and they have spread their wings into Madison County and put together some groups in the rebuild process. A lot of you guys, if you don't know me, my role is advocacy and community engagement. And one of the things that we are hearing in multiple counties and running through the ladder is the need for contractors, roofers, siding, GCs. There's permit barriers, material barriers, and we wanted to open up the conversation around how we as an association, builders, associates, and affiliates can partner with the nonprofits who were able to secure funding and are able to pay for some of these really intricate, critical needs repairs, and the need for local guys to do this work. We're not just talking repair and rebuild, it's economic stability at this point. And so the more that we all collaborate together, I think the folks in the room who are going to be answering questions can agree to that, the better off our community is as a whole. And Meg, if you just wanted to say hello, and Joel, if you just wanted to say hello too. Max Deholl is going to be joining us at around 9. He actually has been partnering with Habitat Asheville, and they're able to speak to what it's like to work with a nonprofit. Yes, we do volunteer days, and there is an ability for those of you who are still struggling and still recovering to be able to support this work and feed your family at the same time. So Meg, if you'd just like to say hello, and then Joel, if you'd like to say hello, I can go ahead and start with the questions that we were hearing that maybe some of our builders and associates have.
Great. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here with you this morning. I know we have our home repair staff, both in disaster and our regular home repair team, come to a lot of different meetings that you all convene. We've been a part of the Builders Association for a number of years, and always learn things when we have the opportunity to sit together with you all. Housing Assistance Corporation before the hurricane was about 50% home repair work and 50% new construction and single and multifamily affordable housing developments. And since the storm, we launched a whole new team of people, which has a whole new set of funding protocols. So we have a couple different ways that we're operating and could plug in contractors, whether that's on the new home construction side or on the repair side. So excited to be here and to talk a little bit more about what that might look like for us and our different funding sources. But it's great to see Joel again. It's been almost a week since the last time I saw you.
Hey, Meg. Hey, everyone. I'm Joel Johnson. I'm the home repair director at Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity. We're also part of a coalition of repair organizations serving the area with the acronym ARCHR, ARCHR. That's the Asheville Regional Coalition for Home Repair. We've banded together to try to streamline processes for lower income families that are looking for affordable home repairs. Since Helene hit, we did have kind of an intake for a standard repair pre-storm repair organization. services. Once that storm hit, we basically adjusted that to disaster repair services. So we have a centralized intake, like the Housing Assistance Corporation in Hendersonville. Habitat does new home construction, where we partner with families for an affordable mortgage on a new home. We've also been doing affordable home repair for about 15 years as well. Currently, Archer has a pipeline of about 650, 700 families still waiting for a disaster repair. We have signed up, I think we're working with 8 subcontractors right now in the area that are completing, a full project for us. But then we also partner with various subcontractors that do in the trades that will do one component of our repair. So still out there looking for local contractors that might be interested to come on board and potentially work with us to serve the community for disaster repair.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you guys. And I can't say thank you enough for the work that you're doing in our community. One of the questions that came up that we talked about in our disaster recovery group is, what is the process to get signed up? And are there extra insurances needed or extra coverage for our contractors? And how does that work?
I'm gonna pass to Joel first. You're the expert on this front. You're in the
Yes. So to work as a subcontractor with Asheville Habitat or Archer, there is a subcontractor agreement, which does require certain levels of insurance coverage. I can go over those real quick. I mean, it's pretty standard for general contractors. It's a workman's comp coverage of $500,000, liability coverage of $1 million, and we also require an automobile liability coverage as well if you're going to have contractor vehicles on site. But then we just really have a general agreement around service, warranties, requirements, and kind of agreeing to our kind of invoicing and payment structure.
So there isn't any additional, because that does sound fairly standard for subcontractors. There's not anything additional since this is federal funding or nonprofit work.
Nope, that's the standard coverage required by most kind of federal, state, and local grants that we use, that they require. So it's been our policy since we've been doing this
Forever.
Yeah.
Meg, did you have anything to add to that?
No, ours is remarkably similar in terms of what we require. And I do want to say with the CDBG-DR funding, I'm not sure how many of you are directly connected with that contract work. We're ironing out the details of our own contract on doing that rebuild process. And there are, with that federal funding, seem to be a fair number of stipulations that sort of go deeper to that. And part of that is even sort of on-site safety requirements that typically we don't regulate very heavily. Like, is everyone who's showing up under your workers' comp, do they all have steel-toed boots on? Are they all wearing hard hats? We don't have the level of oversight that my impression so far is that the CDBG-DR work is going to require as it comes down into local contractors more and more. So that's one notable thing to watch out for in the administration of those federal funds.
Okay, that's good to know. And then signing up, does that go through your website? Does that go through what's the best way for folks to sign up to say, hey, I'm available in your area and I'd love to be part of your team?
In general, I think you could just reach out to us, and we have contact information on the list with the Builders Association. And
Yep.
so anyone in the organization you emailed, our two in new construction, our director of new construction is named Sean Rose. And so his email is just Sean, SEAN @housing-assistance.com. In home repair, it's David @housingassistance.com, and Morgan is over our disaster recovery. So depending on what you're interested in, any of those people would be great, or you can just go through our contact listing on the association.
And I'm happy to send out a blast to everyone and say, here's how to sign up, here's who to contact once we're done here. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't overload or flooding you guys, which I know you're in desperate need for contractors, but to follow that. So as far as pay, how does that go?
Can I just jump in too on that?
Yep.
If anybody's interested in learning more or signing up with us as well, it's pretty similar. They can reach out directly to myself, and I can provide my email. But we're doing some adjusting to an actual Archer website. That should go live again at the beginning of September. That will have a subcontractor portal that if you're interested, you can, and I'll provide the website to you, Sarah, that you can disseminate, but that'll have just a portal there that folks can fill out that interest form, and we'll fire off the subcontractor agreement and the W-9 information and such.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. As far as pay goes, you guys are paying market rate. Is that correct? And they're signing up as a contractor just as, is it a monthly pay? Is it biweekly? How does that work? Is it just like working with, if you're an electrician and you work with a builder, or just covering all bases so that all questions are answered from the foundation up?
We try to turn around all invoices in 7 to 21 days as our commitment. Most often it's 7. So we cut checks weekly. So depending on the cadence of when the invoice comes in, that usually determines how many days until it's posted.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty similar. Currently we want all invoices submitted to us by the 3rd Wednesday of the month, with checks cut the last Friday of the month. How we operate is we have families come to us, apply, get approved. They've provided on their application issues that they want addressed. We'll go out and do an assessment and put together a scope of work. And then we can provide that scope to the contractor ahead of when we would go out and do a site visit with the contractor as well. And then, yeah, it is, provide us a proposal on that. We approve it. We put that into our contract with the homeowner. And then based on the scope of work and pricing, we will also consider a progress payment, a deposit to get started as well.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
will add on our front, it is one of the things that presents a challenge for us as a nonprofit and how our finances flow on a lot of our grants. It is hard for us to advance funds for materials. And so we will do it on occasion, but it is really much more complicated for us than being able to pay an invoice at the end of the work. So I'm not sure, Joel, you're nodding. I'm not sure if that's how it works for you all, but it just for us as in terms of an administrative burden, we would much rather see invoices for everything at the end.
Yeah, I will agree. Historically, our traditional home repair program was primarily funded through federal grants, but with our disaster repair, we're primarily working through kind of private corporate foundation funding that is a bit less restrictive, that allows us a little bit more leeway on providing a deposit.
Okay, that's awesome. And then I also wanted to check in with you guys about, I know that you're seeing a variety of structures from manufactured homes to, you know, stick-built homes. I know that you're seeing a variety of different kinds of repairs. And you each probably have a coordinator who is coordinating the scope of the work with said contractors. What does that communication look like? What does that look like? Like, let's say that you guys, I think the goal is to have a pool or a list of electricians and plumbers and siders and roofers or GCs. Once they're signed up with you, they filled out their paperwork, insurances are approved, everything's good to go. What does that look like with working with you all so that they are able to schedule with, you know, their clients and their businesses, and also with you? What does that communication look like as far as preparedness coming to the job site? Like, you're going to a manufactured home and half of it was hit by a tree. We need gutters, we need this, we need that. So I would just like to hear a little bit within your organization so that our builders can be prepared when they show up on site for efficiency for everyone.
I can start. I think ours looks very different between new construction and home repair. Historically, housing assistance and over the last 20 years has moved more and more to hiring licensed contractors to do all of the work. So we were project managing, and we were taking all of the state and federal funding and plugging that into to people's homes to do the repair work. Now with the disaster and with having with both having lots of private funding, but also having to raise lots of private funding to fill the gaps and what does the community need to recover. We figured out that using volunteers was going to save us 40 to 50% on the cost of a repair. And so in trying to leverage what funding we have to go further, there are spaces where the work of volunteers is never going to be fast or satisfactory. So we are still looking for contractors to do really solid work in the space of those repairs, but it may be walking into a chapter for that house. So what has been damaged for houses now, anything that was easy to fix, if it was just a roof, it's done. And so now what we're looking at are these very complicated, weeks-long, months-long repairs. And so when you're walking into a site, you're walking into something that has been in process for a long period of time. So for us, there's a lot more hand-holding in that. We might want to meet you out there at the beginning and walk you through where are we in the arc of things. There's been a great deal of flexibility in Henderson, Transylvania, and Polk counties. Like our local building inspectors are doing like everything they can, as much flexibility as they can to get people across the line in this repair work. And so we may just need to bring you up to speed on where all of that is and what conversations we've had that might be different in this instance than it would be in a normal home repair for the flood damage. So I think with the repair work, we're much more hands-on. I think when we get to the new construction piece of it, if we're bringing in someone to hang drywall, it's going to be pretty straightforward. Like, we'll have the house plans to you in advance. We'll be able to share all the specs. All of our projects are built out in Builder Trend, but we can hand you a roadmap for that new construction that's going to be much more fixed than what our repair projects will be right now. I don't know if that sort of gives some shape to it, Sarah.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Joel, do you have anything to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two ways to approach projects. We have our own staff with supervisors and volunteers going out to tackle projects that may involve like a subcontractor, an electrician, plumber, roofer, gutters, foundation repair. That gets scheduled and worked out with the project manager over that. So they work out the schedule for that to make sure that we've either completed all the work to have the site ready for that subcontractor. In most cases, we come in after the subcontractor. So we have roofers out there doing a bunch of roof repair for us. So then we can get in and do the sheetrock and floor finishing and those types of things. But we also, like I said, we've got about 8 subcontractors that are doing entire projects, complete projects. So that's we've signed off on their quote to do the project, and they're now managing that entire project for us, including the permitting. And so that's kind of how we operate.
Awesome. That's great. One of the questions, since you brought up permits, is there a way that we can support in the permitting process? Because I know that it's different in each county that I represent. And also, you guys were saying that, managers and county managers and permitting and building inspectors are really working hard. What does that look like? And is there a way that maybe we can support in that capacity? Joel, your face.
Yeah. I will say, the permitting process and the inspectors have been great so far in understanding of the situations that we're walking into. One of the biggest challenges was coming behind a number of the out of town groups that had come in and just swept through and tried to get people to a point. And that would be just kind of stabilizing structures or and having to come back behind them, knowing that, none of that work was done with a permit, and, a lot of it not to code. Or we're coming in. I mean, we do have caps on how much we can do as far as cost of a project. So we can't address maybe all of the needs of the home in an initial project. And so, inspectors have been understanding it and really good to work with so far. So I can't think of, support on that end. But
one of the things I'd like to touch on, Joel, that you just said is, while we greatly appreciate all of the volunteer groups that came in from out of town to stabilize housing or at least basic safety, it's crucial for the local guys and the licensed guys for long-term stability and long-term repair and recovery to be in this work. And so our contractors and associates and affiliates on this call, and for our membership who will see this afterwards when we send it out because it's being recorded, I can't emphasize enough of how our nonprofits really need us as a building industry, who really need us in our skilled work and really need us in our trades and what we do professionally every day. So, Meg, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that.
I would really agree. I would say that, you know, it's great if you go out to a house and are a part of that rebuild and repair process after the storm. But if it is with, you know, an organization that isn't local, you know, if you've been brought in as a licensed contractor to do a piece of the puzzle and you see things that are not to code, it is worth pointing out. It is worth saying to the permitting office, you know, that you're concerned about this other piece of what's been done out there that you've seen. I think one of the ways that I think about recovery is not simply did people get back into safe housing, but it has to do with the economic recovery of the region. It has taken families generations to build the housing that they have. And to see that compromised because we have not put it back thoughtfully is really a challenge too. Like that is not helping our families recover. And I think the other thing is that I have been in a conversation where a permitting department was talking about pulling an electrician's license because they had sort of they had been working with one of these volunteer groups and under a lot of pressure to do things a particular way that was outside of the scope of what the code allowed. And so, you know, I think that that's another reason to be cautious when you're working with those other groups and to sort of hold a line is that, you know, that our licenses are also important and we need them in the long haul to build. So that would just be my caution. But I'm also grateful for everyone who has stepped into that space and is willing to figure those things out because they are complicated, long puzzles for sure.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Max is with us now, and he has been working with Joel and Habitat and Archer. And for those of you who don't know, Max is my cohort and partner in our disaster recovery task force meeting. He's a board member at the Builders Association of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Very skilled and professional in what he does. And Max, thank you for joining us. And I would love for you to share a little bit as a builder, as a GC, what it's been like for you working with our nonprofit friends, because as we've just heard, and you know, they really need us. They really need our skilled trades. They really need our experience. They really need our expertise and knowledge of codes and the topography in the area. So I'll turn it over to you for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I've had a few conversations with Joel, and I think we got Daniel connected over there. And he had a meeting, so he couldn't be here, but I asked him just to send some notes about his experience working with you all. You know, some of the, you know, things he's really enjoyed. You know, he really, I think for him, one of the biggest notes that we talked about was the personal connection that he feels of, you know, working with, you know, people that really, really need it a lot. And so he's really appreciated that. And in general, you know, I think he's, you know, been able to be really flexible with you all. And, you know, you all kind of given that, you know, opportunity to him. Oftentimes in construction, flexibility isn't something that we generally get. You know, generally when you have people with large budgets, they think that they own everybody in their path. And so I think he's appreciated patience and flexibility. So, yeah, I think, you know, a couple notes was, you know, I think, and I don't know if this has been talked about already or not, but, you know, there are, at least from, you know, our experience, some insurance requirements that not all subcontractors are going to have. And so, you know, Joel and I have talked about that, and I think, you know, have talked about, you know, even some abilities that Habitat can kind of help and be flexible in that way too. So, you know, but I think kind of being clear with subcontractors about what those are and, you know, what they need to have, and sometimes even helping them along with the process and getting those. And then I think, you know, setting the expectation of kind of what what the projects look like. Again, if you have somebody who's coming from a large high-end custom home build to a lot of the very, very important and necessary nonprofit work, they might not fully understand exactly what they're working on. And so, I think it's helpful just to kind of be, even again, if it's photos of a typical project or, things like that, just so people understand, what that looks like. And, I've heard that from a few people that we've talked about. But, and again, I think the other thing for Daniel is that he really appreciates the kind of development of a long client that can be consistent and reliable, and they know what they're going to get, and can be easy to work with. So yeah, that's about all I got from.
Can I jump in? Hey, Max.
Hey.
Yeah, so some maybe a little background here. Max brought this contractor to us, Daniel, Quality Craft, and he's been wonderful to work with. I don't know, we're on our maybe 4th job with him right now. I think all 8 or 9 of our subcontractors just met this morning. We try to keep, we've been keeping them about 2. They each have about 2 more projects in the hopper that they know what's coming next. We're walking. They can seamlessly go from project to project. Some background on what Daniel has done for us. He's currently working on a home in Candler, single, elderly woman who's about to undergo hip surgery as well, had her home flooded. So he's done kind of flood cut, cleanup, framing, sheetrock, finishing out those walls and floors. Been really great to work with our homeowners. Like Max said, you make a connection with that person. We're there ahead of time, doing identifying ways that homeowner likes to communicate, any barriers, and kind of what that subcontractor is walking into. And then we also, we had Daniel's company do a lot of that work, and then Habitat came in and built the ramp, for this homeowner as well, that she's going to need once she has hip surgery. On a side note, we've got PBS coming out to that home today to do a story on the homeowner, what we're doing there as well. So, and we're constantly trying to highlight the work that our subcontractors are doing for us on social media and other outlets as well. So.
That's awesome, Joel.
Yeah. And I have been working on, getting in touch with more people and trying to further that, because, so far, we've worked with Daniel for years, and he has really, really appreciated and valued working with you all. So, yeah.
I think that's great. Meg, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I love hearing that story of finding like very solid ways of working together over time. I think in our new construction, my ask for you all would just be to stay tuned. Federal funding has been really fun to watch this year, and all of our new home construction has historically been through USDA rural development. And so it's very hiccupy, how will we as an organization continue to build new homes? And we have a commitment to that. That's in our mission, and we're not willing to relinquish it. But it also means that the way that we've always done that, will be changing. We've had, most people are more familiar with the habitat model than USDA, rural development, self-help. But it's similar. It has so many hours of homeowner contributions to the course of the build. And so, how we do that component and how we make up the cash gap, and whether it's simply us building spec homes as an organization and then selling those below market rate to, home buyers that we can qualify through other mortgaging institutions. I think Habitat has its own mortgaging system. That's not something that we as an organization will do. So the math on what can people afford, how can we build effectively in the region to keep building new homes is going to change in the next 6 months. So we're really grateful to have this connection to you all and to be able to float, we're going to switch to doing it this way, who might be interested. I think one thing that, Sarah, I thought a lot about your question about what's great about working with a nonprofit. And I think the feel of it is really important, like that there are ways that you as a builder or as a contractor can really feel like you're contributing something meaningful into the lives of a family in this community where you live. And I think one of the other things is that we as nonprofits are pretty lean machines. And so in a chapter where everybody's looking at the cost of materials, at the ways of working, having a lens into how are we building at such an affordable rate can help businesses be more lean machines as well, because we have to be in order to maintain that affordability line. We have in the past, both with our subs and with subs on our new construction side and in home repair, we don't necessarily ask people like, will you commit to building with us all the time? Because we know that there are much more lucrative projects than what we're doing. But if you have room in your schedule to think about doing one home a year with us as a part of what you put into the community, I think that's a huge win for all of us. So I've just been chewing a lot on your questions, Sarah, as we walked into this.
No, I appreciate that. And I think too, like it's really important to know that as small businesses and smaller contractors and smaller builders, that they're still repairing and rebuilding within themselves and their businesses too. And so building a great partnership together, we all win in that way, right? And I think it's really lovely that you spoke to the part of contributing to the greater good and what is in your schedule, and you can still feed your family and work with nonprofits is a conversation that doesn't happen enough, because we're so used to hearing about volunteering, which we do too. And then also, just because you said materials, that we're going to discuss on Friday at our disaster recovery task force meeting about materials, because I looked at the surveys that you guys filled out. So thank you for that. Jeff Earhart is also another one of our cohorts in our disaster recovery task force group. Jeff, did I miss any questions this morning if you're still on? And if not, we can open up to questions within the group that maybe we missed.
Am I here? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. I think we covered everything that was part of the original outline. So great job.
Great. Does anybody on the call have a question for Joel or for Meg or any of that? Go ahead, Kristen.
Hey, good morning. Firstly, thank you for putting this together and for participating. It's been really informative and just interesting to hear the different perspectives of your organizations and how we can partner. My question is, in conversation, y'all have used the term GC and subcontractor, and I'm a GC. And so my question is there really a need for the GC, or are you really looking for individual specialties in subcontracting?
Yeah, I'll jump in. The answer is yes. So yes, we are looking for general contractors that could take on an entire project for us. That's a complete scope of work for the homeowner, and all tasks involved, where we could turn over that scope, to that licensed contractor. And then we are also working with a lot of individual trade subcontractors to handle components of projects. So
Ours
Thank
is
you.
the same.
All right, thanks, you guys.
thank you.
Thanks,
Good question.
Kristen. David, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thanks for organizing this, Sarah. So I'm with Quartz Properties, and I'd like to lob a question out to Meg and Joel and anyone else. We are a general contractor. We're also a manufactured home setup and contractor. And I'm curious if you guys have ever considered using either modular or manufactured homes as a means of quickly getting people into replacement homes.
So I will say that again, our single family new construction has been tied to USDA Rural Development's program, which has a lot of overlays with, it's rural development. So that tells you something about the mindset. And then our local, sort of Appalachian iteration of that, that office has been not very enthusiastic about using newer technology to achieve affordability. And so to this point, it has been very limited in how we have explored those options. With complete rebuilds, to be really honest, we have not taken on complete rebuilds because for a number of months we were waiting to see what the CDBG DR funding would accomplish. And since that is focused primarily on complete home replacement, we as an organization have not taken that on because we don't have the money for it. So historically, we've been funded entirely by state and federal grants with some local money sprinkled in to do our work. And the idea that we as an engine can raise enough money to do complete home replacement as an organization is really out of our league because we've never had to fundraise like that until this point. And so we don't have a lot of experience leveraging those tools. And it is simply because at some points, donors are the tail wagging the dog for us on that front.
Yeah, I'll kind of dovetail there. Yeah, we are in our new home construction program. It is, stick built construction with staff and volunteers in our communities that we're building. We currently do not have a replacement program for storm related damages going right now, but it's being explored. One thing, there is an organization, part of Archer, the Community Housing Coalition up in Madison County. They launched a mobile home replacement program a number of years ago. I think they're on number 4, and they've looked at different solutions as part of that. There was like for like with the mobile home. They worked with a group out of Auburn University on affordable home solutions as one solution for that, and then they are looking at modular as well. For Habitat, we've done 2 modular builds as part of a state employees credit union program to build a home in every county in the state of North Carolina. And so we did 2 outside of our service area that we used a modular. And then what you're going to see, Meg had mentioned the term CDBG-DR. That is the statewide funding that's coming through the program called Renew NC. And those are going to be contractors. There's an out-of-town implementation contractor for that the state has hired. And then they have qualified, I think, 24 national contractors to come in and do repair, replacement, reconstruction, housing in Western North Carolina. What their solutions are going to be around that, I'm not in touch. It's going to be varied. But local nonprofits were not allowed to be involved in that process of being approved as a contractor for the statewide funds. So we're pretty much stick builders to your question, David.
Yeah.
But
I appreciate that. Meg and I were just chatting a couple of weeks ago about the CDBG-DR program and how they seem to have turned away from modular for the time being, but we'll see.
And also, for those of you who don't know, those CDBG-DR funds, what Joel is referencing and what we've learned in Meg and I in our long-term recovery groups is to apply to be one of these contractors that the state has formed a relationship with, is they are essentially now a middleman. And some of the fine print that was in there to be able to be one of those contractors would be disaster recovery. There was some fine print, and many of ours, like Max, for instance, who had to jump off and get to another call, was not able to sit at that table either. But what is happening is those larger groups that are sort of the middleman between state and our local guys are essentially hiring our local guys anyway. So not really sure what that plays out as or why, but people still need help. And so we're going to get our association out there and our nonprofits support in the best way that we can, because it's all about our community at this point. So those middlemen, we're working on getting to know them to provide resources in that capacity too. But like Joel said, we as an association and our builders were not able to be approved in that way either. So it's folks coming in from, I think, Texas, Louisiana, who are contracted with the state, and those funds that are coming down are filtering through that. So,
and that list is published on the Department of Commerce website. And I think, David, was it 19 that they ended up with? They'd aimed to hire 25, right, but ended up with 19 that they had qualified. And the, you know, this sort of like who the company is, and it's pretty easy at this point to, you can go in through the front door and contact the company directly if you're interested in participating in that way. I think there's also a lot of hiring going on. So if you look out in the, and maybe you don't want to be hired as a GC directly into that space, but maybe you'd rather work with them as a company. And so I think that would give you the contact information. They're under a lot of pressure. They were supposed to have shovels in the ground in August. I don't think we've seen any evidence of that. I will say that one of the challenges of the program is that those 19 prime contractors, did I get that right, David? I'm very new to this. This is more than 13 in housing for me. And on day 91 of my work in housing, we had a hurricane. So always learn.
Meg, you're doing great. You're doing great.
I think it's new for everyone on this call. Right?
Those prime contractors had to agree to work in 39 counties. And so I think one of the bigger challenges is if you don't want to work in 39 counties, you know, being able to draw the lines around how you want to participate in that space or how your company wants to participate in that space. But what I do know is they're under a lot of pressure to get it done. And so, you know, I think as, you know, companies in this space and organizations, we have a fair amount of bargaining power at this point. And so it's worth reaching out and trying things on. There's also a fair amount of information on the history of those organizations because they've had a long tenure in doing the rebuild work. So you can do, you know, a little bit of searching to figure those pieces out. And I think, David, some of the companies have very specific focuses, like Dynamic does manufactured housing, right? They, which is different than some of the other contractors.
Just waiting for those task orders.
So a couple of announcements, and then I'll open it up to anyone else with questions. Tomorrow night is after hours at Carpet One in Candler. And Friday morning at Auction House in Fletcher is our disaster recovery task force meeting, where we will carry some of this conversation and more over to that. You're all invited to those. We also have Battle of the Builders coming up on September 18th. And if you're interested in competing, all of that information is on our website. Does anyone else have any questions for our nonprofits? Let me see, my phone is buzzing. Okay, so one more question that came through on my phone is just double checking that the federal funding doesn't require any additional work that's different or surpasses the NC building code. That it's NC building code and nothing additional.
I'm thinking through all of the layers of it being HUD funding running through the state. I think one advantage, and the reason we had conversations with these prime contractors, is that they have navigated this state by state. And so the burden of compliance for us, having never done that before and worked through these tiers, you know, because there's an implementation vendor, Horn LLC is the implementing vendor. And so they are responsible for they do like third-party inspections. They do all of the assessment of what's to be done in the house. So there's this layers that it's working through, and then layers of reporting going back up. And we didn't want the headache of that. So far, Sarah, what I've seen is a lot of safety compliance measures that are very firm. And then a fair amount of requirements about how quickly the work gets done. And sometimes that's at the expense of, you know, like the work that we do is hard, like it is hard work. And the idea that someone else is dictating whether or not you have to work overtime, and if you have to work 7 days a week to get across the finish line, even in a context where as builders, you know, like it is tricky to schedule subs, like there are not enough contractors, you have to time things with a lot of contingency to get across the finish line anyway. And so then doing that with someone else calling the shots, I think can be challenging. So and again, like it probably depends company by company, whether and how you can negotiate those pieces to get there. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there another question? I'm sorry, because I was going to jump in.
Hey, Sarah, this is John Anglin. I think one of the big things that's going to be on these community development block grants are always in place is a certified payroll requirement. I mean,
Yes.
Nothing has been said that codes are going to be any different than what they are, but people just need to be aware too that there's going to be that need to report, you know, those certified payrolls to that company, to Horn, to Renew NC.
So, I want to jump in here too. This is getting, you know, pretty complicated around CDBG. That's community development block grant money. That's usually how the federal government has passed through their funds to municipalities around affordable housing. And that's how they're doing this with disaster repair. That's just getting rolled out, like Meg had stated. Horn, the implementation contractor, has literally awarded and approved and gotten through the process for one homeowner currently. I met with their implementation director 2 days ago. They've started one project. Their goal was to have, they are closing their application for repair, disaster repair, December 31st. They were hoping to have 10,000 families sign up. They're having difficulty with that. But let's be clear on one thing. There's these national contractors, these prime contractors that are coming in. Yes, most of them are bringing subcontractors that they've worked with in the past outside of this area that they know to come in and do their work. We are working with one of them. We signed them up as one of our subcontractors. They are looking at about 70 projects for us. They've completed about 5. They've been good to work with. But for our local contractors and subcontractors, for working with us in Archer, and those are other member organizations that are doing the same thing as Asheville Habitat on repairs, you are working with us as an organization. We are handling, all of our reporting. We're hiring you as a contractor to tackle a project. So it's straightforward what's in our subcontractor agreement around insurance, and we go for building code. As far as, we are not using federal funds for this. So as what John has been mentioning around payroll compliance and certain things that these other contractors are having to deal with, that is not happening with us. This is a contractor, subcontractor arrangement, and it's straightforward with us. So.
All right. Great. And just again, our builders, associates, affiliates, our local nonprofits, and our community need us. So
can I add one more thing that I really wanted to highlight around this? And I know a lot of contractors, to this point had been working with, with homeowners going through insurance and that whole process around, okay, here's an agreed amount of work. You do that work, you're submitting to the insurance company. All of a sudden, they're nitpicking your costs in that invoice, and what you thought was agreed upon isn't what's getting paid out. I will tell you that we have our money in the bank ready to go. When you sign up to do a scope of work with us that we agreed on, we're paying you for that scope, and we have that. So the waiting period, the jumping through the hoops is not there. Yeah. This is all local here, and like Meg had said, we've been here, we've been doing it. We're going to continue to do it. We want to do it with our local contractors. That connection is there. We're here to shepherd you through that connection with the homeowner. It's a really good, we're out here trying to do good work for our community with members of the community. And so if you're a subcontractor, if you're a general contractor and, you're trying to fit this in and you have a certain amount of time, we have 600 projects. We can find that project that works for you. Yeah. If you're a subcontractor and, you're doing certain aspects of the job, we have those, and so we can really work with you to try to, meet you where you're at and what you have available. And yeah, so.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Home. Yeah. Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you so much, Meg, for the work you do, for coming today. This is like a win for me in my job because I love connecting people. And I know everybody on this call and our association are all invested and committed to the community too. And that is just a really lovely way to pull it together, because collaboration is how we're going to get through this and how we're going to move forward. So I will get with Jude. Like I said, this is going to go out to the membership. I can put email contacts on there. Thanks to Max, who already left the call, for sharing his experience and what it's like working with a nonprofit, which is a beautiful thing. We're all in it together. So Jude, do you have anything else to add?
I just want to say thanks for being here, to our panelists and to everyone that tuned into class today. It will be recorded and shared amongst the membership. So if you couldn't be here or need to follow up on something, we'll also share everyone's contact information. So anything you need, we'll be able to take care of. And
Thank
if
y'all
there's
so
nothing else,
much.
then we'll go ahead and end this.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.